Hey guys, Jeff here, and today I'm grouting my entire bathroom with PolyBlend Plus. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you know I usually use Mapei, right? That's my go-to brand. But in this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try this out. This is found at the Home Depot. I'm trying to do the whole series with everything that you can get at the local store, so you don't have to hunt for the special products that I like to use. At the end of the video, I'm gonna give you my review on this product and tell you what I think about it. Today, we're going to be cleaning up the floor, doing our last coat of mud, and then grouting everything from the shower to the floor, putting on our marble sills, so that way we are prepared for sand, prime, and paint the next day. This is really simple. I showed you how to remove all these little spacers with measuring tape on the shower. On the floor though, it's as easy as using the underside of your shoe. Okay, this is that simple. They just walk right out. And if anything gives you a hard time, you can just grab your rubber mallet. That should be all of it. We want to make sure that our floor is as clean as possible, and that will reduce the amount of work that we have to invest once we get grouting. Here we go. Okay, you'll notice that there's some thin set here. I'm not even trying to scrape it off. I'm letting the water do the work. This is emulsification. This thin set has not finished curing process yet, and it does just wipe off. So if there's just a little bit, it's fine, it wipes off. There's a lot, it just takes another couple minutes to get that water soaked in there. There's a lot of thin set right here, you're gonna see. It's not coming off unless I really rub hard. A little elbow grease. There we go. Goal here is to make sure that every tile and every crack gets wet. This is a grout remover tool. These three tips are all different sizes. This is 1/16, this is 1/8, and this is 3/8. So you pick the tip based on the grout line that you're working in. All right, so we're using a 1/8 grout line, so we're gonna use this tip. Let's find some thin set that's in our way. Right here, I don't like that spot. So in between the tiles, it moves just fine. We're not using downward force, we're pushing this way. And then I hit this. So I just gently glide until it glides free, and then jump the corner. Okay, we don't want to be ramming into other tiles, all right? The glaze can still chip. But this tool, if it can slide, then it means there's a gap there for it to be filled, because it's a V-notch, all right? So the V-notch in this, as long as it can slide, there's room to fill with grout. If it can't slide, that means there's thin set in the way and you're gonna be inconsistent. Now we're just gonna come back, work our way all the way to the door using that technique. If we do this right, we won't have any thin set in the way when we do the grout on the floor, and that'll make the process so much quicker. Oh, and by the way, if you go flat on the flat side, also is really good at removing thin set off the surface of your tile. Now we're coming back over here to this thin set on the surface. Now that it's been wet for a few minutes, it just wipes off without any effort. Remember, you don't have to get all the thin set out, just enough so that the grout can settle in that joint. Taking that extra few minutes now means when you're applying your grout, you don't have to stop. Find your tool, clean the dirt out. Now you got dirt in your grout, so you gotta isolate it and then throw that away. Or you're gonna be washing, and when you wash, you come by an area, all the grout will be moved away, and there's that white spot from your thin set. You don't wanna be disappointed, use the tool. So first step, guys, just like the floor, get everything nice and wet. Once you've got the wall nice and wet, everything starts to soften up. Now don't worry about it, it won't be like that a month from now. Most thin set is cured after 30 days. If you don't put any additional additives in your thin set, Care-Elastic or something like that, then you're gonna be fine to clean up to 3 or 4 days after you put the thin set on. Here we go. I got thin set all over my trim, which I'm gonna paint again. Keep on wetting that down until it cleans off. Getting everything nice and wet here. All right, guys, so for the purpose of this series, we're using everything from Home Depot. So here is PolyBlend Grout from the Custom Building Products, okay? The company, they sell all of their thin sets and all of their grouts. All the information about the application is on the back. Very similar process to what I've done previously with Mapei. This is not the ultra color line from Mapei, this would be like compared to the Cara color. So it's slow and easy, at least 20 minutes once you put it on before you have to take it off, and then an hour, and then you microfiber the cloth, they get rid of the dust, all that kind of traditional stuff. And it does not have a sealer in it, so you got to come back after a couple of days. I think they recommend 3 days, and apply a sealer on your grout lines. That sealer is what keeps the water from getting in behind your tile, okay? And which is the major cause of all the water damage in North America. People don't seal their grout. New homes do not seal grout. So if you buy a new home, seal your grout before you go any further. Save yourself all the degradation that comes with using grout that isn't sealed. I got a pail full of water. We're gonna put a little bit in this pail, mix the whole box at once, and then I've got a brand new clean sponge in clean water. Really simple. We go start with a little water first, about 1 inch in the bottom, okay? Or I'm gonna be running to the store and buy another box. This particular powdery stuff, non-sanded, it's very loose, and it'll stay really loose unless you get the right mix. It's more sensitive than pancake batter. And that's what you want. You want a thick paste that still looks powdery. You want to be able to add the water. You can't remove water unless you start. Just a little bit of water in there. Mix again. Still powdery. And you're going to see, just a little bit of water makes a big difference. Now that's very consistent and very kind of thick, fluffy. But what you're going to find is over the next 3 to 5 minutes, it's going to set up and get too thick. So now we're going to add just a little bit more water and thin this out. Now, watch this, guys. It kind of looks like a thick whipped cream, all right, in consistency. And that's because now it's going to set up for 3 to 5 minutes before we apply it. And it'll go thicker back to where I was about 2 water applications ago, all right? Remember, once you stop mixing, you can't add any more water. So do not start too dry, or you got a lot of work ahead of you. Give this a couple of minutes to set up. All right, now look how thick that got, just in a few minutes, eh? Now we're supposed to give it a good whip again. And what you're gonna notice is when you're using a tool, or you're grouting, or you're mixing, it loosens up, okay? So we're not adding any water, just loosening it up. The longer grout sits still, the thicker it gets, okay? So here's my protection for the floor. It's not cut in perfect. I'm not taping it down or doing anything silly, okay? It's wet underneath. I'm just trying to create an environment where the majority of my mess is gonna be thrown out when I'm done. And then I can take my vacuum, grab a couple of little spots if there are any, and it'll make a quick work of cleaning up and getting ready for the floor. Generally speaking, I don't need any grout except for the vertical pieces that go down to the floor within 1/8 of an inch, because then we're gonna finish with silicone. So this works out really well for me. All right, and traditional, I like to start here, big surface, and then do the finicky stuff at the end. Now, the way I grout for effect is I get a fair amount of product on here, okay? And I get it on the wall, just get it on the wall. For me, that's a really good start. Now, you're gonna notice this stuff looks a little bit chunky. It's not mixing up as nice as I would have liked, so I'm gonna tool it a little bit with the grout, and that'll thin it all out as we go. Now, when you're applying this, you're supposed to go on a 45-degree angle to the joint, okay? And the grout float should also be on an angle. Gets a little bit of a snowplow effect, and it pushes the grout into the joints. If you're not pushing the grout in, what exactly are you doing? You're just laying it across the top. When you lay it across the top, it'll end up finding its way back out when you wash, okay? So you want to push it in, just like when we filled up the Dietrich squares. Going in 2 different directions does a better job of filling it. Same thing here. So the application is, once your lines are filled, then we're going to come back with cleaning. Okay? Removing extra grout. Now, we are going to be using silicone on the inside corner, but these joints here have to be filled, all right? And if you get grout in that inside corner, it's not the end of the world. It's of no consequence. Okay, so don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt to have grout there. It's just not necessary. So don't waste your time trying to fill that up on purpose. Once I've got all the walls done and they've all been cleaned off from the excess, then I'll address the curb. I'm going to get the cardboard out of the way, and we'll do that last little bit. All right. The reason you want to clean it all off is because When you're washing, you want clean water. The more products you leave on the wall, the faster the water gets dirty. The thicker the haze you leave behind when you wash. So, having a nice semi-clean wall like this is the key. Especially as a DIYer, you don't have the experience to know when your water should be changed. I'm going to recommend on every shower wall like this, you want to have 2 different fresh pails. You want to do 1 wash, change out your water, and then come back and do all your wiping with clean water. We'll go through that in just a minute. Now, when you get in these awkward spots, just work it really extra hard, okay? You can always wash the grout out. You only got 1 opportunity to fill. Here we go. This is a hot, humid work. There is a chemical reaction going on in the product. It does generate a certain amount of heat. Don't do this all dressed up and ready to go out for dinner, okay? We're not just passing it over the surface. We're using pressure to apply it into the grout lines. Using the pressure is the difference between getting lots of pinholes in the grout when you wash or not. Those pinholes cost you time and money. I hope we get a couple just so we can show you. Remember, the package said 20 minutes before you wash. That's how long this product needs to set up so that you can wash it. You're gonna find that if you're using this technique, you're gonna be able to grout this in about 20 minutes. So you can pretty much go straight from application to washing. Washing takes about the same amount of time as the application. So don't get too worked up over the timeline on this. That bad boy is ready to roll. Okay, now at this point, this is where we get the cardboard and get it out of here. Okay, so all the other gaps and cracks you see are changes in plane or changes in material. They all get siliconed. We're done. Now, we're gonna get all this out of here. I'm gonna wash my grout float, and then we'll be able to wash the walls right away. Just gonna use my finger to get the extra material out of the way here. Remember, that's PVC trim, it's not sharp, but the tile next to it is. So be conscientious about where you put in your finger. Wet hands on sharp tile, lose that battle every single time. Tile will rip you open faster than you can even think about the pain. You're done. That's it. Not too much pressure. You don't want to be scooping all that out. You want to just leave it on the surface. Now, the same way you grout, you wipe with your sponge, contrary to the line. If you go with the line, you're going to end up ripping all that grout out, okay? We're just trying to take off excess material at this point and buff it in so that it has a nice soft edge. All right, when we go back to do the washing is actually going to soften up that grout line even more, okay? So we don't need to be too concerned about how it looks. Does it look bumpy or rigid or whatever? Unsanded grout generally looks really nice and soft. Now, if you've seen a bad grout job where there's too much texture in the grout, it's because they didn't do the proper washing technique. Being conscientious not to force it into the grout line on the tile underneath. Remember, that floor is going to be a different color. And also different grout. Generally speaking, in this industry, we use an unsanded grout on all the wall tile and sanded grout on the floors. That's the industry standard. Now, there are new products on the market that are unsanded products that have a polymer. Not what we're using here today. Those particular grouts you can use on the floor. And they fill from 1/32 of an inch up to 1/2 of an inch. So they're incredibly versatile. Like I said, in this build, we're using everything Home Depot. Best to know how to use the products that are available at the store near you. That's why we're doing this, just to help equip you with the products that you're going to be buying. Want to see that? There's a spot right here. I saw an air pocket. Yep, there's an air pocket. Okay. Mess it in with your hands, up and down. And leave it like that for at least the next 3 minutes. Let that set up. We aren't even going to bother with that for the next little bit. Let that grout set up before we come back. The reason I made it so messy is so that it's really obvious. You don't accidentally walk away without dealing with that. Oh, there's another air pocket. It's not a perfect science, guys. I was saying, if you end up in a situation where you left grout on the wall, you never noticed it, and it dries on. Most of these applications, this grout, let's give it 24 hours. After 24 hours, you're pretty much screwed. Within 24 hours, you can run to the hardware store and buy a product called Grout Haze Remover, and it'll soften up the product that hasn't cured on the wall yet. If that's you, remember, this is the one part of the project you can't afford to get too distracted. You've got to complete this task, because if you miss anything, you're going to have like a bump of concrete on your tile for the rest of your life. There's nothing you can do to get rid of it after the fact. You have to get in there and mechanically separate it, which involves usually a hammer and a chisel. And trust me when I say this, most gloss is not designed to have a hammer and a chisel on it. You're more likely to break your tile than anything else. Now, part of our painting procedure here is going to be to put painter's caulking on that joint from that wall to that PVC trim. Okay, so there's a little bit of grout stuck in there. You don't have to fight with it to get rid of it. You just want to soften up that edge. And that's it. We left some up top here. Look at that. There's that Grout Haze Remover. Would have come in handy. Again, last chance. Grab some product. Look for pinholes. That's not a hole, but I can see the side of the tile sticking out there. So I'm going to put a little bit more product on it. Okay? If I leave this long enough to set up, when I wash it off, I won't see the side of the tile. You can add grout sealer all you want, but if you got a pinprick on your wall, you're screwed. Water's going in there all day long. We're going to just gently clean up our repairs. There we are. Now we got to go get a new clean pail of water. Let's just talk about this, okay? Because you don't want to wash this stuff down your drain. Sediment will sit in the drain and go hard, and then that chunk of sediment will start catching debris as it goes by, and you're going to back up your toilets. Always, always, always let the pail sit overnight. It'll separate into water and then the sediment. Then you can pour that water out, and then you can let the pail dry out the next night. And then you can just turn it upside down, slap it in the butt, and that sediment will come out in one great big chunk, and you can throw it in a garbage bag. That's how you remove this stuff. Don't be using your plumbing. So we want to wash out our sponge so it looks brand new again. Nice clean water. And here's how we do this. Gently, one side, gently run down the wall. Halfway, flip it over, so that's the dirty side facing you, and wipe down the wall. Do not push, or you will clean the grout out of that joint. What we're doing here is getting rid of all the haze that's left on that tile and softening up the grout joints so they look really nice. Okay? This is still considered washing. We are not at that point where we're supposed to let it dry out and then come back with a microfiber cloth. To be honest with you, I don't ever do that. I wash, and then I do the next grout, and the next grout, and the next grout. And the next day I'll come back. You have to wait at least 20 minutes before you try to microfiber the dust off the wall. But it's not actually adhered to the tile at that point. It can wait a day or 2 days or a week, it doesn't matter. Like I said, as a DIYer, that's your last chance to find a mistake. So you might want to actually clean it that same day, in case you got to do an emergency trip to the Home Depot. This process is to guarantee you don't have to settlement issues on your tile. If you clean with the rubber float all the extra grout right out of the beginning, and then you do this technique, this is your security blanket really, to make sure that you don't have mistakes. If you're having issues, go on an angle so you're not going into the actual grout joints, okay? Or you can come the other way too, it doesn't matter. But this is all about having that sponge as clean as possible and wrung out. You don't want to be introducing a whole lot of fresh water here. Sponge will pick up all the sediment that's on that wall. But if you get it too wet, all you're going to do is have drips running down the wall, pulling product out of the grout joints and depositing it on the tile. Alrighty, this is our poly blend grout. This is a standard sanded, nothing special about it, just good quality ingredients. Going to be very similar. This does 1/8 to 1/2 inch sanded grout joints, usually for the floor, and it's a little light gray. The exact color, rolling fog. Okay, for everybody who wants to know exactly the color. Like I said, in the video description, putting every product from Home Depot went into this build. So you'll be able to see, very similar on the back, the instructions. Wants 1.9 liters of water for the 25-pound bag. You'll notice in the store they all sell 10-pound or 25-pound options of both of these grouts. I don't need 25 pounds, but I need more than 10. So I got the 25-pound, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix about 12, 13 pounds of it. Water first, then your powder, always. Whenever I'm mixing a large pail of something, you want to use about half of the powder, okay, so that you can create that mixture first. So then your powder isn't sitting in the corners, going dry. But because I put in the full 2 liters of water, I'm going with the whole bag. There we go. Finally, we hit that spot where it's a little dry, okay? Got a little bit of water. Now it's like soup. I'm going to go up to second gear and make this quicker. Now check the flowability of that. See how that flows? Okay? It's because we just mixed the living daylights out of it. We'll come back to it after about 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll see how much it's stiffened up. Again, once you mix, you can't add water. So make sure it's thin and consistent, doesn't have the chunks. Like we had to finish mixing the grout on the wall. Don't like to do that. All right, so finish mixing in the pail. I just found it takes a little bit more work. They recommend 3 minutes of mixing with a hand trowel. Not gonna happen, okay? Get yourself a mixing blade. Save yourself the aggravation. This is already washed, it's already prepped. Life is simple. We're just gonna hang out until this stuff sets up. Yeah, this is nice. Stays on the float. That's nice. We're only trying to fill the gaps between the floor tiles, not one plane to the next. Okay, that again will be siliconed. We also want to make sure every little tiny detail is taken care of, right up to the very edge here. So that's where the grate will be set. Better to have a little bit on the edge, and we can cut that later. Remember, it takes about a half an hour for this to really set up and get thick. So we can polish and then come back with a sharp knife and clean off any excess grout. We do have a joint on the wall here, okay? So I want to be real careful when I'm coming along and I'm not pushing that grout up the side. Okay, so a little bit of care. And if you focus on the perimeter first, because I have a joint here as well. So again, we'll be careful here. Push that into that joint there, and that joint there. Just steer clear of that joint altogether. Large format tile gives you that benefit. There are no other joints in the shower floor except there, there, here, and here. That makes this really simple. Here we are. Now we got the perimeter almost totally dealt with. Now we're just going to take this over here and fill in the body of the floor. Well, we got way more than we need, but like I said, the directions will get you really close to a consistent product. If you try to get creative, you might run into all kinds of trouble having too much water, and then you're back to the store getting another bag anyway. So just mix the whole bag, follow the instructions on the back. It's always a safe bet. We're gonna let that set up for about 20 minutes. Whenever you're working with these tools, when you're done using the tool, clean it right away. Take my advice on this one, guys. A good float should last you thousands of square feet of tile. If I let that thin amount of grout sit on there for 20 minutes, half an hour, it starts to get hard real quick. And all it takes is the phone to ring, or a kid calls, "Oh, Dad, pick me up from school." Next thing you know, your tools are shot by the time you get back home. Gentle pressure, and then wipe again from the other side. Done. And all we're doing now is just making this white pass, looking for any pinholes. Again, you can use grout sealer on grout to keep water from getting underneath it, but you can't seal a pinhole. You don't want to overwash this either, because this is a color. White is white. That's easy, right? You overwash a color and you'll take the dye right out of the floor. So we're done. One wipe, flip it, one wipe, done. Gonna grab a little bit of work here. I'm gonna fix up a couple of pinholes in there. That's just a matter of the air getting trapped with the trowel. And as I come along with the sponge, it moves a little bit on the surface. So by rubbing it in a circular motion, you can get that air trap out of there. There she is. because of the product that we're using, it doesn't have a quick dry element to it. It gives you all kinds of time to fashion your floor. We'll leave that. We're going to clean up the tools. We're going to wipe this floor down again, and then we're going to grout this floor. And then we'll come back and polish the whole thing together. And the secret there is going to be to take off my shoes and come in my socks, because you can see shoes are dirty. And we don't want to have any dirt in here once we get this grouted. Here's our grout. It's nice and thick now, okay? So the plan is I got, what, 1, 2, 3 grout lines, and then, so I'm gonna do 2 or 3 grout lines, and then I'm gonna wash right away, gently, knowing I'm gonna come back for another round. And then I'm gonna take all my stuff out of the room, and then from the hallway, I'll do the front half of the bathroom. Yeah. This is our clean washing water. And on floors, you wanna go on an angle, okay? All right, now I've got to reposition myself, and then we'll do the rest of this front area. So I'm coming back to that same joint that was giving me trouble. Nice thick grout. And I'm gonna like really try to force that in and push the water out. You can eventually push that water right back under where the cabinet's gonna go. It won't be an issue anymore. If you have the luxury of time and you have Ditra, you'll find that allowing your floor to wash it and let it sit overnight so it dries out will be very beneficial to grouting. Again, I don't suggest using water on your floor tile in conjunction with Ditra membrane unless your grout is so hard that you can't loosen it up with working with it with your flute. The more you touch this, the looser it gets. Now, if your grout is just too thick and is not loosening up, then throw a little bit of water on the floor. But realize that Ditra membrane is going to hold that water in the grout line, so less is more. Just a touch. So we're going to give this about that 20-minute period where it should really form up. And we're going to use the grout in the pail as our test. When I can't poke through it anymore, like, that's just really easy right now, okay? But some of this older stuff, that's starting to get pretty firm. And that's how I'm going to gauge when it's time for me to go back in, wash that floor, and then to shape and mold that grout edge of that cut tile by the drain. And we're gonna do the best we can, but we need that to firm up first, because every time you touch it, it starts to get looser and looser and looser. So, the magic is in being patient. Now, the longer you let this stuff sit here, the more elbow grease it takes to get it off. But if you're having problems with air bubbles, letting it stiffen up is a good solution to the problem. Now, when you're doing floor grout, it's ideal that when you're done, the grout is sitting flush to the surface. As it dries, it will shrink just a little bit. But when you're doing your wash, you don't want to have it so wet that it's already concave below the surface of the tile, even while it's wet, because it'll shrink up even worse than that, and then you won't be happy with the finished look. If you're not happy with your grout work, you do, is within an hour or two, go grab yourself a grout remover tool. You can scratch all that grout out, clean it up, let it all dry out, try again the next day, okay? As a DIYer, sometimes you gotta learn by doing, and if you're not happy, just remove it before it sets up. And even if it dries out and sets up, you can take the scratch tool and remove your grout. Just remember, the more it's set up, the more energy you gotta use, the more likely you are to chip your tile. So make that decision as early on as you can. If you're not happy, clean it out. Go spend the 15 bucks on another bag of grout and try it again. And take what you learned from the first time and apply it to the second time. Most cases when you're not happy, there's too much water or your floor was too wet when you put your grout on. And those are the two major factors that cause you to have problems. All right, patience and less moisture wins the race. All right, well, time for the review. Okay, not a bad grout. Very similar to the Mapei Caracolor, where it doesn't have the sealer or the polymer in the bag. So it mixes fine, it applies fine. You wanna have it a little bit stiffer than you'd think, right? Because when you're working over Schluter Ditra like we did in this video, you wanna make sure you vacuum your grout lines, get the water out. Otherwise you're gonna have divots and dents and bubbles and you're gonna do a lot of repair, but the grout is not the problem. At the end of the day, guys, it really comes down to this. If you want a quality product, you can get it at the box store. But because box stores are convenience stores, you're gonna pay twice as much as you need to. This is why I tell people, find yourself a local supplier that is more of a commercial zone space, all right? You'll get a much better value. But if you're looking for convenience and you just wanna shop around the corner at your local Home Depot, you can get this. It's a good product. Custom Building Products makes great products. They're the same guys that make the floor leveler and the transition primer that we like to use. So they've got great company. Don't be afraid to use it. Cheers.